Okay, so I'm going to start just by chopping up my onion, just a nice rough chop. And I always do that, chop it in half, trim off either end. So I've come from a background of being a chef, so I have some chef techniques, but also I teach food and nutrition in a school, so we have to think more importantly about how the children can safely cut up vegetables and other ingredients. So I've trimmed off the end. I'm just going to peel off all those crispy skins from the outside because we don't want those. Okay, take my scrap straight to the bin. And now I'm just going to roughly chop them as I said. So I'm going to put my hand over the top of the knife, roughly chop the onion. So I've sliced it that way, turn the onion around, and then just back across the top. So we've got a nice, loosely chopped onion, and I'll do that with the other half as well. Now when I cook, I very rarely use a recipe. Even if it's something I've never cooked before, I'll have one quick look at the recipe just to see what ingredients are in there, and then I just use my own quantities and never follow a recipe. So onion is going straight into my pan, and I don't like to cook with oil. So I think a lot of meat today has oil in there, so I'm just going to add a little drop of water so that the ingredients don't stick. And then I'm going to add in my minced beef here. So if you're somebody that doesn't eat beef, then you can buy minced turkey, which you could use as an alternative. It does need quite a bit more seasoning for some reason, so just be mindful of that. I'm just going to quickly wash my knife. Okay, so I'm going to put my pan on, put the heat on full heat so that we can start browning off the meat. So you're just going to break up that meat. In school I call them worms. Obviously they're not worms, it's just minced beef. And you're just going to start mixing onions into the beef. Now some people like to add garlic to their lasagna as well, so you would chop that up with your onion and put it in all at the same time. Okay, so I'm just going to leave that there to start browning. Now I'm going to start preparing my white sauce, which is just any type of butter that you have at home. As I said, I don't measure anything, but you do want about a tablespoon, and that is going into my other pan. And all I'm going to do is to start melting the butter. So again, I'm going to put my heater on. And just while I'm waiting for the butter to melt, I'm now going to come back to my bolognese and give the minced beef a stir. And you can see that some of the meat there is starting to turn brown. Okay, and then leave it on the heat again. By now my butter is nicely starting to melt. What we're going to do first, we're going to make what we call a roux, which is melted butter with some flour in. So again, just roughly about a tablespoon of flour. Probably 2 actually, looking at that. So all I'm doing is stirring the butter and the flour together, and this makes the roux, which is, it looks a little bit like pastry. And all you want to do is cook that for a couple of minutes just to take away the flavour of the flour. And you'll be left with quite a crumbly mixture. Okay, so that is the start of your roux. Okay, as I say, it looks like a pastry. So I'm just going to leave that to cook for a moment while I give my minced beef another stir. I'm feeding a family of 5, so it is a large pack of mince here, so obviously if you're making more, it's going to take longer for that to cook. Okay, so to my roux now, I'm going to start pouring in my milk, and you're going to do this slowly, otherwise you're going to end up with lumps in your sauce. Okay, and you need to keep stirring that all the time. And the idea is that you're going to start breaking down that pastry-like roux, and you're going to end up with a nice white sauce. As you see, I'm stirring it all the time to stop any lumps from forming. If you do end up with lumps, you can use a whisk or a fork just to break that down further. I like to keep my sauce quite thick, so I don't add too much milk to it, although I don't think this is quite going to be enough. You need to think as well, if you leave the sauce to cool down, it's going to thicken up even more. Okay, I'm just going to give my bolognese another stir. Break down any lumps of the meat, so you don't want to end up with meatballs because that would be for a different dish, so you really want to break up the lumps of meat. Okay, we're about 75% there. Head back to my white sauce again. Continue adding in my milk. You need to keep your sauce on the heat, just to continue cooking out the flour so you don't feel the flour when you eat it later on. Give my bolognese another stir. So once your meat is brown, you can start to add in any other ingredients. I always grab a handful of frozen mixed vegetables. Really good if you've got fussy children. Most kids love lasagna and pasta dishes. It's a good way to hide some vegetables in there. If you have some spinach at home, that's really good. If you finely slice that up, you can put that in and it almost disappears in the bolognese.